Good evening, and welcome to the March 13th, 2013 Agenda Review Meeting for the Pittsburgh Public Schools Board of Education. We will begin this tonight with the Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit agenda and the Committee on Education. I'll start with Mr. McCray, if that's okay. Mrs. Azuda, we can come back if you want. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Brentley. Mr. Isler.
Yes, and just as it's the question I ask when we get, and it's this time of year, with a lot of requests for payment authorized and for contracted services. These are all requested by the non-public schools, correct?
That's correct.
I mean, our approval is pretty much perfunctory because of the pass-through money to the non-public schools under the state law, correct? Mrs. Asuda is very happy because you have her bad microphone tonight.
I was going to say, I got it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Shealy.
Thank you. Mr. Sumter?
No questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Dr. Hawley?
No questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Azuda? Okay. The Committee on Business, and instead of going around, please just let me know if you have any questions. Okay. Seeing none, that's it for the Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit for tonight. We'll move on to the Education Committee of Pittsburgh Public Schools. There are no proposals I'm sorry, I'm going to start with Mr. Weiss.
I want to advise the board and those here, and we're on television obviously, that on Wednesday evening, and the board will receive a formal notice of this under the school code, but on Wednesday evening, there will be a resolution presented as a new business item appointing Dr. Lane as superintendent to a term through June 30th, 2017. That will be 16? I'm sorry, I don't have it here, so I apologize. 2016. I will coordinate with the staff to put that on the website with the agenda so that there will be an opportunity for public comment on Monday at your agenda review, at your public hearing. The board will also get a formal notice of that by mail as is required under the code. So I wanted to apprise you of that officially and inform those here and those watching. And I apologize about the date, but age is memory is a casualty of age, so that's the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. And the date of the public hearing is Monday, March 18th. Yes, Mr. Brentley.
Mr. Weiss, you mentioned that you're going to send a formal notice out to the board concerning this item. But what will you send publicly? Is there a formal press release that will go out to the press informing them? And how much of that will you be able to share by law? Because I know some of the information must be available to the public.
The notice will inform the board as to the caption of the resolution that basically will appoint Dr. Lane to the term through June 30, 2016. We can certainly coordinate with the Communications Department and release. I'll work on that, but that's what will be in the new business item.
Okay. I guess my concern is just, I know we will have the information, but my concern is public access, public information. And even though it is often referred to as a personnel issue, there are things that we are required to share and make available to the public, especially if there are dollars involved and agreements and that sort of thing. So I'm just asking you to make sure that the information gets out in a timely fashion to the public, well in advance of the public hearing, but more importantly, just so the public is well aware that next Wednesday this item will be for us. I'm well aware we will get the information and so on. So you know, it's been somewhat certain things kind of a secrecy or last minute information, and it shouldn't be that way. These are public dollars, and these are public employees, and so we should make that information available immediately to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Seeing no other comments, we will move on to the Committee on Education. As I stated before, there are no proposals grant awards this month. Our first section tonight is consultants contracted services, items number 1 and 2. And I will, Mr. Brentley, can you start?
No questions. Thank you.
Mrs. Azuda.
No questions, just a comment that on the Summer Dreamers Academy, I'm glad we're entering into a partnership to look at all the non-educational, for lack of a better way to say it, benefits of Summer Dreamers Academy, so that we're looking at it. We're reviewing, last month we agreed to review it academically with our third graders, and then this will get the non-academic items. So I think this is a great idea. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Mr. Eisler?
No questions, Ms. Shealy. Thank you.
Mr. Sumter?
No questions or comments at this time, thank you.
Dr. Hawley?
No comment.
Thank you. We will move, Mr. McCray, I'm sorry, Mr. McCray.
I just want to note that these are two really good programs, both of them. And if the public has a chance to look them over.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. We'll move on to payments authorized, items 3, 4, and 5. And Mrs. Azuda, can we start with you, please? Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Just on number 4, and I don't know if Ms. Conley's here or not, but it is the one, it states that authorizing its proper officers to make payments to schools and organizations for providing extended school year services for students with disabilities. And I'm assuming that this is a continuation contract, that this is something we have done in the past.
Yes, sir, it is.
The organizations we work with, I'm assuming that we do have some evaluation method and have been happy with them and find that the program does help our students?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. No questions at this time. However, I just want to make a comment on item number 3. That's the 17th Annual African American CAS Citywide Symposium. It's a worthwhile event. It's a gathering of a lot of gifted and intelligent young students within the district, and I would just suggest or recommend that all those who can make it, especially board members, if you can make the event, please do so. That'll be at the Greenway Professional Center on April the 26th, 2013. So if you can make it, do your best to be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Dr. Hawley?
I will concur for number 3. It is a wonderful experience for our young people to actually be in that leadership role. And I also want to say thank you to Dr. Walters, who works so tirelessly and uses some of his own funds along with the funds that are going to be given to him to support this effort throughout the school year, not just for this symposium. So I just wanted to put that out there for you as well. I also wanted, for number 4, this is a program that has been going on for many, many years, and I'm glad that the school district is still supporting the summer school for our students with disabilities.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mr. McCray?
Just a couple more great programs, no comments.
Mr. Brentley?
For number 3, I also wanted special thank you to Dr. Walters and his commitment to this program. But Dr. Lippert, can you tell me, are we seeing, it says here for, I think it's 275 students, are we seeing any kind of increase in the number of African American students that are participating in this program? Are they going up, or are our numbers going down?
Dr. Lippert is out
where's-
this evening. I can get you actual numbers and updates, but in general, there have been many efforts to try and increase the recruitment of minority students in higher level programming. And you'll see some actual tabs in here with AP Summer Camp and courses, so I'll get you the actual enrollment increases. We do have them. I don't have them ready to hand this evening.
Okay, and Dr. Lane, just for this item too, you know, one of the things we may want to consider, if we have those, I don't know, is there a certain GPA that they have to participate, I'm sure, in this program?
That's one of the things that actually we've been working on, Mr. Brentley, and I don't believe there is a GPA requirement, but students do have to actually qualify to participate in these higher level classes, and so there are a variety of things that are looked for, but I think if a child is struggling clearly in an area that the class would be in, it may not be a good idea for them to participate, but in terms of an actual GPA, I don't believe there is one, but I can get you more information on that.
Well, here's what I was going to suggest. I mean, just like we reached out to those borderline students that were barely or almost promise ready, and we targeted them, and we put them all in one area, and we had folks to motivate them. In other words, we allowed them to dream as if you were promise ready. And I think this might be a great opportunity for those students who may, you know, just be 2 or 3 percentage points off from qualifying, that we extend an offer and invite them to the event. And we let them see what it's like, what students in this program go through once a year, and some of the expectations and the socialization that they'll possibly pick up. And I just think if we do that, or even a peer shadowing program, where if each one has a friend that's interested, borderline, almost there, we'll say, this year we're going to try something new. You give us his information or her information, we'll get them an application, and we will allow them to shadow you, their friend, for this particular event, and it might act as a motivating tool to get them there. So, because it's always wonderful, we do it every year, Dr. Walters is the best, but if we're not seeing an increase of African-American students' involvement in a district that's predominantly African-American, we're missing the point, because there's so much money that we're spending for it. So I'm just asking somebody be creative and get those students there who are just waiting for an invitation to show you that if you push me a little bit, I can qualify and I can do more.
Mr. Brentley, actually, and we can certainly talk to Dr. Walters about this particular event and whether there'd be opportunity to bring some students in, but there are a couple of things going on that do encourage children, African-American students in particular, to participate in higher level classes, and one of those may be in this time, or maybe it was in last month, but this is the summer program to introduce students to AP. Because there are many students that may have not thought about taking an AP class, and the summer program, this will be, I think, the 3rd year for that program, to bring students together, let them kind of figure out what an AP class is, why it would be a benefit to them to take AP, and just in the information that I believe that this program has contributed to this increase. But in 11-12, 4% of the students enrolled in CAS classes district-wide were African-American, and then this year it went from 4% to 12%. And so we've had a pretty substantial increase over the course of between last year and this year due to the efforts of staff and principals and our gifted staff to get students aware of the opportunity and get them feeling comfortable that this is something that they can successfully complete.
Okay. Well, you know, I think it would be great, and I guess the reason why that other program you mentioned too was good for them to understand what the classes are and that sort of stuff. But this event is kind of unique. I had an opportunity, I think I attended 3 years in a row or something, but the excitement is just kind of unbelievable. I mean, the speakers that he has lined up and the theme that he has there, it's enough for a student who may be in a shell to sit back in the back of the room and they can't help from getting the feeling about, you know, pushing yourselves to be a part of this. And so, and you know, so anyway, if it would be great, I'd love to see, you know, a little vision, something different, so that we can reach out to those borderline students who would qualify. Thank you.
Just to add to Mr. Brentley's comments, I think another really great part of this event is that the student leadership team who are involved do a lot of the planning, and it gives them experience in seeking out speakers and setting up events and taking leadership roles as young people. Excuse me. With that, I actually missed, and you'll have to forgive me, but we actually have 2 walk-ons today. The one in your blue folder is in education. The purple folder is in business, and we can get to that later. It's Dr. Lane will speak to number 1.
As the board's aware, the district has had our Take a Father to School Day event that Mr. Brentley and the Male Fatherhood Involvement Project has promoted and organized over the course of several years, and of course were recognized last year for this program around male engagement in schools. We are very fortunate in that the Heinz Endowments is stepping up to help support our event this year. And so we're going to be asking you to accept a grant award from the Heinz Endowments to support this. It won't be just a day, but there are several preliminary events and then, of course, the day itself. And so looking to get even a greater involvement from males in the community. And as I said, I know the board will be very I know the board will be willing to express our appreciation to Heinz Endowments for their support for this. So that's what the green 1A tab is related to.
Thank you, Dr. Lane. Being that we just got it, if we can come back to that at the end, or do you want to make comments now? Go ahead, please.
I just wanted to mention that I'll have a resolution next week that we'll be voting on for this item, and we'll be announcing new activities for this year's activities and new partners. Also, this Saturday at 9:30, my friends at 1410 KQV, we will kick off our programming where we highlight different fathers and the activities. And this week we will have 2 individuals on there talking about the events coming up and what you can expect. So folks can tune in 1410 a.m., 9:30, that's KQV. And we're going to have a series of programs, and we're getting an early start. One thing that's different, and we'll have it in the resolution, but we need to let folks know as many times as possible, because I know in another week, actually the school will be out. Everyone will be on vacation, I think, in another week, week and a half. And that is, we've changed the actual date of our Looking for a Few Good Men downtown, where we gather 100 men for a city council proclamation. That date is going to be, in a matter of weeks, April the 9th this year. And so we're asking for the principals who may be watching, if you can identify your fathers in your building and ask if they would join us, call us, and give us a general idea so we can order our lunches. And we moved it up a little, a couple weeks ahead of time to allow us time to really market the 17th of May and to really put some other pieces in place. So, but next week, we'll have a resolution to spell out all those activities.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Azuda?
Yes, I'd like to, this is great that there's additional support for the day. I would like to make again the suggestion that the day be moved to the fall so that our schools can experience the residual benefits from this. This is great that we get parents in the building, but it's the end of the school year. And so typically then we don't see them, and then summer comes and you lose that momentum. And so I think if we would have this day in the fall, we could have the residual benefits from the momentum it's creating.
Mr. Eisner?
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. I just want to thank the Heinz Endowments. I think it's phenomenal that they support this school district to the level they do. And to take on this initiative, I think is really testimony to their support of the important work that's being done in this district. And again, it just is good to get the outside support. It does take a lot of people to make this district run.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. With that, we'll move on to general authorization, items 6 through 14. I've looked at you, and I thought you made eye contact with me, too.
Not on, I just wanted to. Quickly, I just wanted to say thank you to the Heinz Foundation, Heinz Endowment, for the grant and the time that it's taken from the time that Mr. Brentley and others were coming up with the idea to the fact that it's been institutionalized to this extent. Though I can remember the years where we were fussing and fighting about the funds and fussing and fighting about the food and how this is going to be taken care of, but at least it's, as again, institutionalized in the form of a board tab that's before us. So again, thank you to the efforts of those on the male fatherhood involvement project to keep this going, and also to, again, the Heinz Endowments for the wonderful gift. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Dr. Hawley?
I just want to echo my colleagues' statements. Yes, I want to thank the Heinz Endowment as well for partnering with the district in this great effort. And I also want to thank Mr. Brentley for bringing this to the district. As a former principal, when we first started, it was a few fathers that came. They were a little suspicious as to, what do you want? And you know, and I would have to say, Mrs. Azuda, a lot of them do become very much involved in the lives of their children, and we learn something from them as well, how to reach out to fathers that are maybe not in the home, or uncles and grandfathers that really do help to take care of the children that we have in the district. So I want to thank Heinz Endowment for seeing this as a major initiative to help families and all of our parents, and Mr. Brentley for keeping this activity going on in our district. Thank you.
I also like to add my thank you, and everybody should take notice that this isn't just for the school day. This is for the ongoing programming that they're doing to entice the teens to become more involved with their children, and the intergenerational aspect of it. I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. With that, we will move on to general authorizations, items 6 through 14, which include the adoption of the 900 series of policies. And I believe we are on Mr. Eisler.
Thanks, Ms. Shealy. I know, Dr. Lane, you spoke a little bit in the previous agenda packet, the previous section about the Gifted and Talented program to encourage children to get into AP courses in the summer, and I think that this is a continuation of a project that really has stimulated a lot of children's interest, students' interest in getting into AP classes. I'm just wondering if there is any data of the number of students that might have come into this program as a result, into AP courses as a result of this program. And I don't need that now, but if you have anything, it would be great to get it to us.
Well, just a couple things, information, we have more, but of the students that attended, the 74% of the kids did enroll in an AP class, which we felt good, really good about. And of the kids that actually enrolled in this class, 89% of the kids that actually enrolled in the AP class received at least a B or higher in their first quarter grades, which I think speaks very well for not only the program itself, but also the ability of children that may not have thought about taking an AP class and were perfectly capable of not only taking it, but doing well.
Great, thank you. The other item, number 8, that I want to comment on, and this is the reestablishing and adding some CTE programs, getting it before the Pennsylvania Department of Education. At our last Education Committee meeting, Ms. Mike did present this, and Mr. McCreary, who is a consultant to the Department of Education, was here and said very, very glowing things about our CTE program and where our CTE program is today. And Ms. Mike and her team needs to be commended for that, and I think it's great that we're continuing to expand a program. It is not the only item in here for CTE. And then finally, I do need to say that there is a number of items here, but item 13, which is, and 14, some of these items that are dealing with the proposed regulations, policy is a result of a tremendous amount of work. We were sent this weekend not only the entire issue of how we're dealing with red line policies and what are the changes are, which according to Mr. Campbell have all been put on the web for parents to see. But Amy Zundel, who was from Mr. Weiss's office, has done an incredible job of compiling this packet for us. And the number of meetings that the committee has had and the number of staff people who have attended early in the morning, which the meetings usually last 2 hours, and then finally the workshop that we had a couple weeks ago. I want to thank my colleagues for sticking with us because we were able to get through all the policy changes that we want to make. So what we have before us tonight, Mr. Campbell, is on the web for parents to see, correct?
Correct.
Great. And so that I encourage parents to really take a look at the policies, the policy changes, and that they're up to date. And Mr. Campbell, I mean, everything we do on policies will be available on the website to parents, correct?
Correct.
Which is a change of what we've had in the past. I mean, we also have hard copies at the schools if parents don't have access to the computer. But we're encouraging parents to really take a very, very good look at the policies and spend some time on it. But again, thank you, Dr. Lane, and to your staff, my fellow board members who have really worked long and hard to get this where we are tonight on the 900s and a couple other changes that are being recommended by Mr. Weiss's office. Thank you, Ms. Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Eisner. Mr. Sumter?
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. I just wanted to make a comment on item number 8, which is the revised CTE plan. And that's a revised CTE plan that will include the reestablishment of the CTE carpentry program at Pittsburgh Carrick High School and Pittsburgh Westinghouse Academy, 612, and existing labs for the 2013-14 school year, and the relocation of the RHVAC program from South Annex to Pittsburgh Alderdice High School. As time goes on, I would urge strong consideration to putting an information technology course in the East region. We have that in the North, we have that in the Southwest, and also a finance course also, just to make all the regions complete, and only because in a capitalistic society, finance is important, and in an information-driven world, information technology is important with the internet, computers, that whole field. So just to have all of our regions have the same offering and not penalize one region over the others for having to leave their region to go get courses across town, only because those are very popular courses, and the growing trend is in that direction. So if there's any way we can add that to the East region, we should look into that, or at least have that conversation. Thank you.
Mr. Sumter, let me ask you a question. Finance is not in the North either. Am I reading this correctly?
You're correct.
So
just the information technology for being in the North and the Southwest, it was an error on the finance being in the North region. But if you could add that also to the other two, to the other two regions. So finance in the East and the North, and then information technology in the East.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shealy.
Dr. Holly?
Yes. For number 6 and 7, I'm excited about the AP program that's being offered for all the students. However, excuse me, why is it that Obama cannot have their classes at Carnegie Mellon? Why do they have to be at Obama?
You know, I'm not certain. I'd have to follow up with Dr. Walters to find out.
Well, let me say, I did follow up with Dr. Walters, and this is not something that he's asking for, that the students stay in a regular high school for the summer. Last year, the IB students actually had to go to an elementary school. And the rest of the students throughout the city had the opportunity to go to a very rich environment, which is CMU. And I'm concerned that they're not being given, these students are not being given the same opportunities as the AP students around the city. I think that for this type of programming, that it is essential that they all be treated the same and fairly and equitably, since we're into this equity mode. If these other children are going to be on a college campus, I would like to know why these students can't be on a college campus as well. And I think we would get even more than 48 students to participate. And a board tab has not been given to us yet for the rest of the students in the district. Are we having summer school? I have to ask that for the high school students. Will there be anything
I know there's
forthcoming?
been discussion about that this week, that some high schools are interested in offering some summer school programming, and Dr. French and I were talking about this earlier this week. I don't think all that's been finalized as yet, but there are some schools that are interested. We have offered, for students that need to make up credits, Novanet has been available to them all year. Period 10 has been available all year, and we did, in fact, let students know last summer that we were not going to be offering the regular summer school that had been offered previously. We were going to have credit and makeup during the course of the school year. However, that said, we do have some high school principals that want to, and so we're working with them right now.
Thank you. I hope to see that coming to us very quickly. I just believe that that's something that we really need for the students in our school district, especially after meeting with some of the staff and administrators in the north on Friday. I think that we may really need to have that resource for this for our students. I also want to say congratulations to the CTE program for putting in a very wonderful, a good plan for us to use for our children who are in the CTE programs. And I also want to ask, I concur with Mr. Sumter about having some more programs in the north. They don't seem to have as much as the rest of the areas. So if we can, sort of boost them up a little, giving Perry, because that's the only high school left on the north, on the north side. And also, I want to say thank you to the CTE program for bringing in number 11. I was at a wonderful event last weekend at the August Wilson Center with this particular vendor, and she did an outstanding job. So I'm excited to have this activity with our students as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mr. McCray?
Thank you. I also want to congratulate the CTE and Ms. Mike for bringing the carpentry back. It's great. Yeah, a lot of people work with their hands, more people with fewer fingers, but but these are great. It's not always funny. Okay. These are great programs. I love to see this. I also want to congratulate Greenfield, Morrow, and Sunnyside for winning the Big Lots contest. That's fantastic for what is it, for playground, right? Oh, it's just for supplies. Okay, I'm sorry. Need my glasses too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Brentley?
Yes, this is a general authorization, correct? Okay. I just want to point out number 13 and 14. This is, if I can recall, this is the third time the committee chair has bundled important policies into one single vote. And of course, I will not be supporting it, but I just want to raise some very important points that policies are nothing you can do a drive-by on or you can sit and have a quick little meeting and you just change it. The prior board members before us put a lot of time and energy and research into the exact word to make their policy right. And so there's been many that has come before us to put policies together, and I think it's misleading for the public for one board member, the chair of that committee, to just give us a packet. And we are required to vote on the entire package from a variety of changes. We're often pushed into the scare tactic, it's law, or our solicitor have checked it, or we're forced to do it, or mandated. You know, the bottom line is simple. When you change a policy, if it requires taking 2, 3, 4 weeks to change one policy, then that is our job as board members. And for us to have this item before us, you know, you're talking about the biggest insult that a colleague can do to another board member is, of course, we're not allowed to disagree with the chair of the committee, so it normally has to pass. But some of these policies these changes usually come back to haunt us. You remember a couple years ago, it was changed to lower the standards. We're in education. We should be raising the standards. We've had all kinds of things that came back to haunt us. And so I am suggesting to you, Madam President, that it would be an important thing to see some consistency as to the authority given to all board members, and as the president of this board, enough is enough. You know, we should not be forced into voting bulk policy, bulk. You don't do that in public education. You don't do this to children, and you don't do it to parents. And then we say, we'll make it available on our website. Well, remember, the research shows the majority of our parents don't have access to it. Well, we'll make a hard copy available. Yes, but you have many, many items that you're changing. I mean, from the changing of the flag and procedures and forcing folks to participate in certain things. You know, you just don't do it. So I want to be the first to tell my colleague, Mr. Eisler, I disagree, and I would beg that you respect this board and not do these kinds of things here, because anyone that tells you they're on top of every policy here, there are no one here attorneys, who tells you that we know exactly the impact of that tweaking of that word or changing of that phrase, they're lying. Because you don't do this in a massive kind of thing, and we don't know what the motives are, and we don't know who he's targeting, but we cannot be a part in a public setting with public dollars and trying to, at the same time, keep our students in our class, protecting their rights. And because we can put it in the policy, yes, there's been mistakes made many, many times before in the past. So as someone who's been here just as many years as the chair of this committee, I find it a little insulting. I find it extremely insulting that there's no stopping to it. You know, you wake up one morning and say, I'm going to change 15 policies. And then it's before us. We have a little fake meeting where it's open to the public, and I would bet the majority of the public is not aware of it. And so then it gets presented, look, we've had a public meeting, we've had board input, and it was taken through our legal thing. It is simply not true, and it's wrong to do this. And I will not support it, and I'm encouraging my colleagues, you know, let's not do this. It's just not the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley, but I must take umbrage with a few of your statements. The policy committee began working on this 900 series in November. The full board received a copy of it on February 27th. What you called a drive-by meeting on March 4th, I felt was very rich in discussion, and it was one of the best meetings and discussions this board has had in public. I actually agree with you that these should not be a single item, that we should have the ability to vote each policy up and down one by one, and I will suggest that change now in public. But to characterize this work as quick or hasty, in my opinion, is wrong. I think it was very time-consuming and very thoughtful, and the committee, which is not just Mr. Eisler, but includes Mr. Sumter and Mrs. Fink, and as well as many staff people, student services, business and finance, and other groups in the administration were well represented. It's just wrong to characterize this as fly-by-night or by the seat of anyone's pants. It was a very thoughtful effort, and whether you support it is your choice, but I just needed to say, to characterize it as flippant is wrong, in my opinion. Mrs. Azuda. Go ahead, Mr. Brentley.
Look,
I will go to
I definitely expect your position, and I understand why you would have to say that. Madam President, you do not do policies this way. There's time that goes into these things. You know, from the word and from the phrase, I don't give a darn who's submitting it and who's the chair. You do not set a policy that way. You've mentioned it started back in November. In my opinion, when you're going to take a policy, you take one at a time, and you have a room and you invite the public, and you allow them. At what point was the public involved? The public will get this as a packet, and then they're scrambling in the next 2 or 3 days, if they have the time, to then determine what will be the impact on us. It absolutely makes no sense. I know that the written word, and whatever this chair submits, we always have to prove it because of who he is. It's just bad policy. Nobody should have that authority to change when they want, and then have other folks to stand behind them and say, look, it's right, we got to do it. And then it passes. From past experiences, we found out that we've made bad decisions when we moved hastily, when we moved fast. And it's been an embarrassment for the district, and we did it in a bulk. Same thing before. Woke up one morning, I'm going to change 15, 20 of them. And then it's presented to us like it's a legitimate, real item, as if it was well thought out and the public had its input. That is simply not the case. I understand your position. I'm sharing with you as one board member how it is not right and it's not fair as a colleague to be forced, I'm not an attorney, to forced to have an item before us and then to sit and to try to look as if I'm educated enough to know its impact on every major change. No, only one submitting that know what he's targeting, and it's unfair to do that. So we can justify it and talk about it all we want, but that's not our job. We're to set policy, evaluate policies, and create policies. If it takes us 2 months, or if it takes us 2 years to get the language right, it is not only our job, it's our duty to do it. No one person should have the authority to take a whole pack. And this is the third or fourth time this thing happened before. Period. Nobody simply should have this. So I know we will agree to disagree, but I've been here for 14 years. Some of this stuff has stretched back then, how we can just change and we bow and we do it for certain individuals. I'm saying that it's not helpful for public education. It's not helpful if we want to bring our real partners, which are parents and taxpayers. It's just not helpful unless you're in the know and you know what the intentions are on some of these changes, then, you know, whatever that agenda is. But the majority of us and the mass folks are not aware of it. You don't do policies that way, period.
Again, I will repeat myself. This work started in November. The board had one of the best meetings I've ever attended on March 4th, where we discussed these policies one by one. They have been posted on the web since the end of February for public purview or review, and our meetings are announced as they always have been. So there was nothing subversive about this process. Mrs. Azuda.
My first item is on the revised CTE plan. Since it's slated for the 13-14 school year, and magnet registration is closing, I believe it's this week. How will we handle publicity and enrollment for the new programs?
We are creating a recruiting plan. We've actually, before we brought this before you, we made sure that we did a survey to make sure that we had student interest. Okay. We made sure that we had student interest by completing a survey with students in the schools to see if they were interested in the program. Second, we are creating a recruiting plan where our career counselors are going to go out to the schools and recruit students and have them fill out the application, CT application.
Okay, so it won't be it won't be locked in because the magnet registration is over. We'll have a special.
You're correct. We are not locked into the magnet application deadline.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I can't see past Mr. Bruntley's arms. My next question is it's a comment on the Big Lots. Last year or the year before, I went to a celebration that was held at Big Lots for the Manchester students. They won that year. And the store employees were so excited about it, and the kids that were chosen to go to the celebration were excited. So it was kind of neat that I was able to attend that. So that program kind of holds a special place in my heart. And just as far as the policies, I will be supporting them. I know Mr. Brentley has an issue with how we handle them, but we were here quite late last Monday night, and as you say, it was an excellent meeting, and I want to thank our staff. But we did go through them all, and Mr. Weiss, I want to thank your staff for getting back to us on all the items that were questioned by the board that weren't able to be answered that night. That report we got was very helpful, so I wanted to thank you for that so that we're able to make knowledgeable decisions.
Very much.
You're welcome. That's it. Thanks, Mrs. Shealy.
Thank you. With that, we will move on to the Committee on Business and Finance. Who is the appropriate person for the walk-on? Ms. Barone Martin, or is it Mr. Camarda?
I think it's Mr. Camarda, or maybe Mr. Joseph. Are you
Oh,
doing the
Mr.
walk-on?
Joseph, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Joseph?
Mr. Joseph, please.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. In the purple folio, you'll find a replacement tab for item 13, which is an amendment to the May 23rd board authorization to authorize a tuition-based program for Head Start, for the Early Childhood Program. And I'll read the amendment. Resolve further that the Board of Directors authorizes proper officers to approve a tuition-based after-school program for preschool to 5th grade students in schools that request the service and demonstrate a need. The after-school program will run from the end of the school day until 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. Enrollment in the after-school program is completely voluntary, and the cost for the after-school program services shall not exceed $30 a day. Costs may vary depending on enrollment rates and number of days per week enrolled. Thank you, Ms. Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Can you just give us a quick, what was different between the one we received and this replacement?
So the one that you received, it's a replacement, actually has a not to exceed amount for the daily tuition rate.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. We will actually not get to that one yet. We'll start in consultants and contracted services. And Mr. Sumter, I think if you don't mind starting this section. That's items 1 through 7.
No comments or questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hawley?
Yes. For number 7, exactly why do we need this?
Dr. Hawley, I think that since this is for the Human Resources Department and Ms. Bowler is not here tonight, I can say basically what I know, but we'll get you more information on this once we get once she's available to respond to your question. But the Human Resources Department actually as we began our Empowering Effective Teachers program, understood that because we were looking at not just teacher evaluation, we were also looking at recruiting, placement, and other things that Human Resources is responsible for, that a lot of this work relies on having, having a strong department that is engaging in best practices. One of the things that this allows our team to do is to participate with other districts that are very similar to ourselves and learning more at how to do some of the key functions. For example, one of the things the board has asked us to engage in is to the work that you've asked us to do around diverse staff. And so strategies in that could be part of this kind of training. So that's basically it, but it's an opportunity to learn not only from the staff of the academy, but also from other school districts similar to ourselves on how to best, what best human resources practices look like. One of the things that's different when you're in a department like human resources is, unlike, for example, math teachers, there are a lot of them in the district, so you can bring them all together and they can work together for professional learning. But if you're in a department that is just a few people, you actually get more benefit by working with people that are doing the same work you're doing, and that's what this is allowing them to do. But I will see if Ms. Bowler has any more information she can provide to the board before next week.
You know, I'm always looking for ways that human resources can identify some support for schools. And the hiring and the closing of positions. I listened to my former colleagues at the high school that we went to on Friday, along with the teachers that were there, and you know, and heard their plea on needing support around their attendance issues, and only to find out that the people that were actually helping them with some of that support, those positions were actually closed. And to find that you're hiring other people to do more evaluation of the teacher, but the Effective Teacher Project should also have a layer of support there to help teachers to help students. And this attendance issue seems to be like a major issue for a lot of our schools that we have not brought, which has not been brought to this board yet to tell us how the district is going to identify strategies to help those schools and those students. But now I see an academy here to help human resources, but as you're telling me, there's nothing here that's helping me to understand how human resources is going to do the humane activities to help schools, help students. And so you know, I'm still waiting to hear that and to see that kind of work being done. You know, it's good to have an effective teacher, but the teacher can only be effective for some of these classes or some of these schools where you're actually having people and policies that from central office that are going to be linked to helping to support them to do that work. So I'm going to keep asking those questions over and over again. You know, when is that coming? When can we see it?
Well, I don't have a date that I can give you, but I can tell you I was at 2 meetings today because one at a couple different organizations I attended, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and about the issue you're talking about, which of course is this issue of chronic absenteeism. I don't see it as human resources role to address that. I think that's the role of the academic team and school performance to work with our schools and our community around the issue of chronic absenteeism. And I don't have a plan that is going to be coming to you immediately, but there are going to be a variety of strategies in this area, and so there will be information coming forward to the board soon, both what the district can and should do, as well as we have a number of community partners that are very interested in helping helping support community-wide effort around making sure kids are in school.
You know, I agree with you that for some of your answer, and I'm glad that you do have community people out there that are willing to do this work. But I am going to disagree with you when you're talking, human resources should be able to tell, well, not tell, but guide the central office recommendations of positions that you really should not be closing because they directly affect whether or not the school will be able to do their citations. We used to have somebody in central office that was their major job. They would do the citations for the schools, and from the information that they received from the technology that we had through our absences, through our taking our attendance every day. So when I asked the question, you know, all of the social workers there agreed. The person is gone. So now that work is put back onto the social worker at the school level. So there's a lot of work involved there where that work was actually done by the person, one person in central office. Well, it might have been a team of people, but I know my person that I used to call all the time, they had those letters for the parents. So it's those kinds of things that somebody needs to be advising the team before you go and close that position, that this may not be the position we need to close. We may need to do something else here. That's why that's the reason why I said this is something that maybe human resources, that I know human resources should be involved in, because I know that it has happened in the past where they have helped to make those decisions. Number 10, I'm sorry. Did I go? Yeah. Am I going ahead of myself?
Yeah, we're up to 7.
Okay. 7 is the last one. Okay, I'll wait.
Thank you, Dr. Holly.
I was on a roll, I'm sorry.
Mr. McCray.
You know how I get.
Mr. Brentley.
Yes, and I don't know if Mr. Camarda, if he can answer this, but I just took a quick glance through. This is the consultants and contracted services. I did not see any of the blocks checked for minority-owned company. Is it just one of those rare months? Or have we given up on, well, I know we've given up.
We work very closely with Ms. Castleberry, so we've not given up on anything. And I think it's just a product of what the items were, types of, you know, containers and products. And so I think it's a rare month, as you pointed out.
Okay. So what is this package total? I mean, a guesstimate, we're $1 million, over $1 million?
The materials about $600,000.
Okay. Yeah, I see the one item was about 600 alone, so, number 2, yeah, that's
Yeah,
over.
and there's a purchasing item before that, and the other items are consultants, contracted services for facilities work.
Okay, well, you know, I just wanted to just raise that concern again, that we have to find ways to partner. We've been able to do a great job with women, you know, and actually when you categorize it, actually white women do very, very well with us. But as far as minority-owned businesses, I know there are some who are still struggling, some who are still trying, even though they often talk about a brick wall and how difficult it is to actually get in and establish relationship and do business with the district. So I just want to raise the question again to Dr. Lane. We have to prioritize that, regardless of how tight things are. We still have a growing minority company organizations out there, even the smaller companies, and the commitment has got to come from the top. And when there's no emphasis on it, we just see them pushed to the back. This is kind of unacceptable for an entire month to not be able to say that we can point to 10, 20% or so going to a minority-owned company. So I'll continue to raise those questions, and it would be great to have the push come from the administration, because the other thing about the consultants contracts, these are relationships. You know, when you look on the back, quite a few of them, when it says, well, how did you arrive at this amount? And it's checked where it was negotiated. That means it's a relationship. That means that, hey, Mark, come in, I need, you know, a dozen of gasoline-powered widgets. Let's talk about it. Here's a cup of coffee. What do you charge? Okay, fine, it's in. Those are relationships. And so minority-owned companies, African-American-owned companies, and very, very smaller companies are unable to develop those relationships. And so if you have an administration who is echoing and pushing that, you know, directing our staff, develop those relationships. Because it's good for business. This isn't about a quota, but it's just good for business. And we need to see a push. So I may not support this item next month, but I just wanted to encourage you. Women-owned businesses, or especially minority-owned businesses, have to do silly things too, like feed their families and pay the bills and try to do business and do a decent living to survive in this city. So we should be very, very mindful of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Azuda?
No questions. Thank you, Mrs. Shealy.
Thank you. We will move on to items 8 through 13, payments authorized. Dr. Hawley, can we begin with you, please?
Sorry. Number 10, these are all of our summer programs that we will be having this summer. And for the Summer Dreamers Academy, you have 5 sites, but you don't have them listed.
You're right, Dr. Holly, they're not listed, and I can't recall them off the top of my head. I don't know if anyone in the room has the 5 sites for this year. Oh, they are, they're on the back, I'm sorry.
Oh,
They're on
I'm
the back.
sorry, did I miss it?
Yeah.
You see 5? Name them.
PCA and Greenway Gifted Center, Pittsburgh Lions, Kappa, Carmel, and Faison.
Okay. Thank you. 13. Oh, that's
Mr. McCray?
Are you going just up to number 11 or number 10? No, 8 to 12.
You know
8
what,
to 10. 8 to 10.
Mine's are out of order, so it is only 8 through 10.
Okay, I have no questions.
Thank you. Mr. Brentley? Mrs. Azuda?
Mr. Campbell, could you tell us about number 9, please?
Sure. Number 9 is the first time the technology leadership team will get together as a team for professional development. The Right Brain Aerobics, as it's called, is a program and a process to assist in the creative thinking process. As techies, we are often locked into a certain mindset, and this process and this training and method, again, is our first time as a team to work toward creative solutions for technology in the district.
Good luck. I hope it's successful. Thank you, Ms. Shelley.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Mr. Eisler?
Thanks, Ms. Shealy. Just on number 10, and I don't know, Mr. Camarda, Mr. Joseph, are we getting on the summer feeding program, do we still get support from either the federal feeding program and or the state?
Yes, we do still get support for those.
And it is all done by our food service, correct?
Correct.
And I consider it a really important program for our students in the summer. The last thing is, and we usually get it somewhere around this time, we also, the city also contracts with us for their summer programs for us to provide the food. That has nothing to do with this item we're talking. This is all school district sponsored programs, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Thanks, Ms. Shealy.
Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. No comments or questions at this time.
Okay, now we will go from our items 11 through 13, general authorization. Mr. McRae, can we start with you, please?
Thank you. We discussed this in the pre-business, and I want to just bring the board's attention to number 12, the Almono TIF in Hazelwood. It's about time a neighborhood that really needs something is going to get it. This authorization, however, is just to let the URA get their ducks in a row. All we're saying is, okay, go ahead. We like the idea. Get your ducks in a row and come back to us, and we'll give you a vote on it. And I just wanted to point that out because it isn't really clear in there. It's a really bad copy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McRae. Mr. Brentley?
Yes, for number 13, if Mr. Joseph or Mr. Camarda, just kind of walk me through. Is this our first time doing a tuition-based program or charging tuition?
I can answer that. Carol Barone Martin, Executive Director for Early Childhood Education. Starting with this school year, which was approved last May by the board, we started offering a tuition-based preschool program for those families that didn't qualify for Head Start or Pre-K Counts funding. And so one of the things that we found even more clearly when we started to introduce this was that the 6-hour day that we offer is not long enough for a lot of families. And many schools do have after-school programs that parents pay for that are provided by an outside organization. Not every school has that, so we thought that we would be able to provide it to schools that want it and don't have it available to them, so that we could extend the school day not just for the preschool children, but for children up to 5th grade.
Okay, do you have an estimate on what you expect to raise in terms of revenue? How does it?
Well, we're really not looking at raising revenue, but being able to offer service and being able to manage our, to pay for the service that we offer. Once people started paying tuition for the 6-hour school day, we were tapping into a group of people usually that needed a longer day because they were working. So if the school doesn't already have that available, we want to be able to provide that.
Well, are we getting close to the edge in terms of mixing apples and oranges? For instance, if this is one of our program or one of our facilities, everything in here was paid for by the early childhood or preschool program, but now it will be used for a tuition-based. And so is there a gray area that we're coming to, number one, and number two, with this tuition base, who's monitoring, making sure that those students and parents who would normally qualify are not edged out because of this new tuition-based program that we have in place?
Well, we're mandated by our grants, by Head Start and Pre-K Counts and Head Start supplemental assistance to serve a certain number of children. So no other children are going to be edging out those children because we're mandated to serve that number. Okay. When we accept the grant, we accept that number that we're going to serve. This just enables us to provide additional programming. And this year, we had enough children to keep open one more classroom that we would have had to close if we didn't have the tuition-based program.
Mm-hmm. And so we are, when we start to get into things, what's the age limit of the students?
The 6-hour school days for 3- and 4-year-olds, but the after-school program we could offer to a broader range of ages. Okay.
And so primarily we're providing services for working mothers, working parents to, I don't want to say a babysitting service, but we're providing a service while they're working in terms of child care for their child during the work day.
Well, the 6-hour program is the same one that we always offer, which is the educational program, and matches the core curriculum standards that we need to match to going on to kindergarten. The extra a couple of hours would be a childcare program. Those hours from the end of the school day until 6 o'clock would be a childcare program, because it's often hard for people who are working to get someplace by 2:15 in the afternoon to pick up their child.
Okay. Well, you know, I would expect and hope that your department would keep an eye on this. You know, I don't know where it goes. I mean, it sounds like it could be something, I mean, which is something we should kind of keep in mind for everything. If there's an opportunity, sliding scale to offer that, then have a discussion. But for something like that, and I know parents who would die to get into certain locations, and I don't know how you would handle that if we say that, you know, it's booked because of this, or now we have paying folks who have a priority. I don't understand it, so I don't know how it works. But I'm just only asking to make sure that we keep in mind that who our target population is, and that if there's an opportunity to prioritize that, that we continue to do that. I'd like to keep an eye on that and see. How many do you have in there so far?
We have 15 this year.
15. And what are your estimates in terms of what you anticipate having?
Next year, we would like to have 24.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Azuda. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. I just, Mr. McCray or Mr. Weiss or Mr. Joseph, I just think in this TIF package there is one very, very interesting slide about the dissolving the residents in TIF in 5 years. Is that correct, Mr. Weiss? That this is being, the residents in, the dissolving of the residents in TIF that is in this packet?
Yes.
That is a TIF that is being dissolved 5 years early?
Yeah, that's correct.
So that we will, as it is laid out here, see the full taxable rate 5 years instead of 10 years in?
Yes, I should also add that the same thing happened with the Union Switch and Signal Garage many years ago.
Right.
That also was retired early, so the district got full tax revenue ahead of projections.
Yeah, I just think that in terms of before this TIF was given and the residents in and the senior living facility were placed there, the revenues to the city for the property was $1,531. The total tax revenues now are $644,637. I do think that every once in a while TIFs do work, and we do see not only in terms of jobs and services, but also additional tax money, and I just think that that is very good. And I think, Mr. McCray, things like that, in all due respect, should be pointed out to the board. That's okay. Because it's a very, very positive statement, I totally agree with you with the Hazelwood piece of property, that's all going in for infrastructure too, correct? Just as the garage did. So I think that that is very important. And Ms. Brown-Martin, just in terms of the high-quality program that we run and we're known for in this state and this country, when you gave Mr. Brentley the statement, it's 15 tuition paying out of how many total students in that program, roughly?
In our classrooms, we have over 1,700 kids.
Right. So I do, I think that it's a good thing for parents whose children may not qualify for the supported program to be able to take advantage of this, and especially the high-quality program that you run. So thank you for doing it. I think it's a great addition. Thank you, Ms. Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Questions on item number 12, the Almano TIF plan, Hazelwood Almano TIF plan. It was stated this was presented at the pre-business. Okay. I was going to say when I saw you pulling out the parking lot, I was pulling in. Generally, we have these presented to the full board. Is that at a later point in time? Okay. So just by the vote next Wednesday doesn't lock us in. We still have another bite of the apple at some later point in time to whether we approve the TIF or not. Okay. Thank you very much.
Dr. Hawley.
Yes, for item number 13, Mrs. Martin, are you going to be able, are parents able to use the child care subsidy to keep their children in after school?
We are looking into that. We're going through the process to make ourselves available for that.
Okay, great, because even though the price that you're charging is very generous in terms of childcare, it's the price that she's charging is very generous. I mean, very generous. There are parents that really, that would be a hardship for them. And there is a program that's out there that can subsidize that program for children to stay after school. So I'm glad to see this kind of program coming to the school district. It certainly helps those parents that do work, and this is a wonderful extension to the program that they're currently in, and we'll be able to give that service to them up until 6 o'clock in the evening. I think that's wonderful, and I always had it at for my Head Start classes. So I'm glad to see that you want to do that other places. So does that mean that we won't have the partnerships that we have currently in the district with, because we do have some places that have we have a partnership with other aftercare programs?
No, in schools where those aftercare programs are working and they have a great relationship and it's working, we're not looking to change any of that. We did survey all the principals and asked which ones felt that they needed something that they didn't have, and if they were interested in us working with their schools. So there's lots of great after-school programs already in place, and those will remain.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Barone-Martin, on that one, and maybe this is Mr. Joseph or Mr. Weiss, what about people being able to access flexible spending accounts for child care to pay for this, or will this qualify for the income tax write-off that you can get for child care? It should, is my point.
I mean, go ahead.
So in terms, just like Ms. Barone-Martin said, with exploration of using child care subsidy, these are also items that we will be exploring as we further go down this road.
Just much more attractive if you can get the tax benefits of paying for it using either pre-tax dollars or getting the write-off. So with that, we're going to move on to items 14. Item 14. Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Zuda. Mr. Iser.
No question on this one. Thank you, Mr. Shilley.
Mr. Sumter.
No questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Dr. Hawley.
No questions.
Okay, with that. See, that's what I just asked. Go ahead, Mr. Sumter.
I just would like to make a request at this time, and that is the agenda review meeting that was put when we were going to table the putting out the request on Schenley, on the sale of Schenley, the request for proposals. If I could get a copy of the audio disc, and if I could have access to a copy of the transcript. I don't need a copy of the transcript, just access to a copy of the transcript. That's all. And that's the meeting that preceded the vote to put out the RFP for the Schenley building. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess I forgot one thing. Are there any items that the board members would like to call out now for further discussion at legislative in either education or business agendas?
Yes, I reserve the right to raise any questions my constituents direct me to raise at the next week's meeting, any and all items.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Anything more specific than that? With that, this meeting is adjourned.